very good evening. Welcome to State of Business on our television. I'm Ashing Sani Veera Singha. Let's have a look at the headlines first. World Bank Country Director brings new recommendations to boost Sri Lanka's tourism sector. Government should soon engage in debt reprofiling discussions with the IMF and other lending organizations, opposition party member stresses. News in detail. Tourism Minister Prasanna Ranatunga has appointed a 11-member advisory committee comprising private sector stakeholders to fast-track the development in tourism sector and to effectively promote the country's industry in the international domain. Accordingly, the members of the advisory committee are Jetwing Symphony Chairman Hiran Kure, Connaissance de Ceylon Chairman Chandra Wickramasinghe, Shangri-La Hotels Colombo Vice President Timothy Ritt, Santani Wellness Resort founder Vikum Navagamua, Sri Lankan Airlines CEO Vipula Gunathilaka, Ceylon Hotel School Graduates Association past president and executive committee member Trevin Gomez, Daily FT editor and CEO Nistar Kazim, Expedia area manager Savi Godakanda, e-marketing ICEO Rajitha Dahanayaka, and the committee secretary is Ranjit De Silva, while its coordinator is Nimesh Herath. The inaugural meeting of the newly appointed Tourism Advisory Committee took place at the Sri Lanka Institute of Tourism and Hotel Management recently, where industry veteran Hiran Kure was elected as the committee chairman. Addressing the inaugural meeting, Tourism Minister Ranatunga outlined the importance placed by the government led by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa on the tourism sector to boost socio-economic development, including enhancing foreign exchange earnings, income and jobs to local people. He said that tourism has been identified as a thrust sector in the President Rajapaksa's national strategy with a specific goal of achieving 7 million tourists and $10 billion in foreign exchange in the medium to long term. Minister Ranatunga requested the newly appointed committee to draw up a framework and come up with a proposal to open the country for travel again, initially through a travel bubble or travel corridor. In the meantime, Sri Lanka's leading luxury boutique hotel W15 Hanthana Estate is now awarded as the best new and newly renovated hotel by Condé Nast Johansson's, which is the leading reference guide for luxury hotels, spas and venues around the world. W15 Hanthana is the only hotel nominated in this category from Sri Lanka, and the category has covered all hotels in Asia, the Middle East, Africa, Oceania and the Indian Ocean. W15 Hanthana is a newly renovated luxury estate bungalow situated in the hills of Hanthana, close to Kandy. The recent virtual Ceylon Tea evening organised by the Consulate General of Sri Lanka in Melbourne in association with the Sri Lanka Tea Board has highlighted the importance of drinking tea as an essential immunity booster during the prevailing COVID-19 pandemic, while promoting Sri Lanka's Ceylon tea with the international audience. The very first of its kind, the virtual Ceylon Tea evening was a novel approach to promote Sri Lanka's Ceylon tea during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Sri Lanka Tea Board Chairman Jayantha Molligoda, joining from Colombo, appreciated the Australian consumer for their continued admiration for Ceylon tea and said the Ceylon tea global promotional campaign commencing in 2021 will cover Australian market to bring the Australian consumer closer with the Ceylon tea. In the meantime, Dilma Tea Chief Executive Officer Dilhan Fernando demonstrated tasting of different regional Ceylon teas and making of a proper cup of tea. The premium quality of Ceylon tea, health benefits of drinking tea especially during the pandemic, tea's ability in boosting of the immune system, antioxidant qualities and ability to reduce the stress hormone cortisol in the body were highlighted during the virtual event. Australia is an important market for Ceylon tea, and Sri Lanka was the second largest tea exporter to Australia in 2018 with 2,391 metric tons of tea, which is 12% of Sri Lanka's exports to Australia in that year. Former non-cabinet Minister of Economic Reforms and Public Distribution and Samagijana Balavegya parliamentarian Dr. Harsha De Silva calls the government to soon commence the official discussions with the International Monetary Fund and other international lending organizations for the reprofiling mechanism to settle the due loans. He made these observations addressing a media briefing in Colombo this morning.
ඒක කරන්න පුළුවන් එකම ක්‍රමය තමයි ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල අරමුදලත් එක්ක නිල වශයෙන් සාකච්ඡා ආරම්භ කරලා ඔවුන්ගේ සහයෝගය ලබාගෙන ඒ හරහා ජාත්‍යන්තර වශයෙන් අපට ණය දීපු ආයතන සමග සාකච්ඡා පටන් අරගෙන අපි කියනවා රීප්‍රොෆයිලිං ක්‍රමවේදයකට ගිය යුතුයි. අපිට ගෙවන්න තියෙන ණය පොලියයි වාරිකයයි නොගෙවා ඉන්නවා නෙවෙයි යම්කිසි ප්‍රමාණයක් අඩු කරනවා නෙවෙයි ඔවුන් සමග සාකච්ඡා කරලා අපි කියනවා අපිට කරුණාකරලා මාස 24ක් එහෙමත් නැත්නම් මාස 36ක කාලයක් දෙන්න නැවත මේ ගෙවීම් පටන් ගන්න කියලා. අපි දන්නවා ජනාධිපතිතුමා මෝඩි අගමැතිතුමාගෙන් මේක ඉල්ලලා තියෙනවා. ඒ ඉල්ලලා තියෙන ඉන්දියාවෙන් දීපු ණය සම්බන්ධයෙන්. නමුත් ඒකට තාම යහපත් ප්‍රතිචාරයක් ලැබිලා නැහැ. අපි දන්නවා චීනෙන් මේක ඉල්ලලා තියෙනවා. තාම ඒකට යහපත් ප්‍රතිචාරයක් ලැබිලා නැහැ. නමුත් ඉන්දියාවෙන් හා චීනෙන් ගත්ත ද්විපාර්ශ්වික ණය වලට වඩා විශාල ලෙස අපිට අභියෝගයේ තියෙන ජාත්‍යන්තර ස්වෛරී බැඳුම් කර හරහා ගත්ත ණය. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා ඒ සාකච්ඡාව පටන් ගත යුතුයි කියන එක තමයි අපි වාකිය යුතු විපක්ෂයක් හැටියට මේ අවස්ථාවේදී අපි කියන්නේ.
Stay tuned for more news after a short break. Welcome back after the break. Police media spokesman Deputy Inspector General Ajit Rohana states that a total of 75 individuals have been arrested as of yesterday for not wearing face masks in public and for failing to abide by social distance regulations, and he stresses that the regulations on preventing COVID-19 will be strictly continued. According to the Gazette notification issued on October 15th, it is obligatory to wear face mask and maintain social distance in public spaces. Meanwhile, police media spokesman Deputy Inspector General Ajit Rohan added that 220 persons have been arrested in the Western Province yesterday for violating the curfew, and that more than 2,200 people have been arrested so far for violating the curfew in several police areas, including the Western Province, since October 4th. Also, 340 vehicles have also been taken into police custody as of yesterday. In the meantime, 409 more COVID-19 cases were identified in the country yesterday, including 401 close contacts and 8 persons from the quarantine centres. Health authorities reported that another 274 individuals were identified today as COVID-19 infected persons. They also said that 267 were close associates of the Pandigoda cluster and 7 persons were from quarantine centres. Moreover, the COVID-19 recoveries of the country reached 5,858 as 277 patients were discharged today after a full recovery from COVID-19. Thereby, 10,655 PCR tests have been conducted in the country yesterday, the Health Promotion Bureau added. More than 545,040 PCR tests have been conducted in the country so far since the 18th of February, Health Promotion Bureau further added. Thereby, Chief Epidemiologist Dr. Sudat Samaravira says that the rise of COVID-19 cases from the Minuangoda COVID-19 cluster shows a considerable decrease, and that the rising cases are mainly affiliated to the Paliagoda cluster. Moreover, the Education Ministry says its Isrupaya building will be open tomorrow. It has been temporarily shut down yesterday for the disinfection purposes after a COVID-19 positive case was detected at the Isrupaya building. Moreover, the National Operations Centre for Prevention of COVID-19 Outbreaks states that a large number of Sri Lankan expatriates remain stranded in safe houses in Dubai in United Arab Emirates after the COVID-19 virus, and that on a presidential directive, immediate action will be implemented to bring them back to Sri Lanka soon. In the meantime, it was further noted that the completion of PCR tests within 1 day, as instructed by the President, is to be introduced, covering target groups who could be more vulnerable to the virus, and tests are to be conducted as groups. Meanwhile, Government Information Department announced that the government has provided more than 7.3 billion rupees to provide relief to the people in the quarantine process to control the COVID-19 virus outbreak. In addition, the Treasury also hopes to allocate further funds as necessary at the request of relevant parties, including government agents. These funds have been allocated to provide relief packs to families quarantined in their own homes and to provide a relief allowance of 5,000 rupees to low-income families in areas where quarantine curfew has been enforced. An amount of 2,721.27 million rupees has been allocated for the 5,000 rupees relief allowance in the Gampha district. 2,333.6 million rupees has been allocated for the Colombo district and 1,310 million rupees has been allocated for the Kalutara district for this purpose. An amount of 469.57 million rupees has been allocated for the families in need of relief in Kurunagala district, and the amount allocated for the Batticaloa district is 128.39 million rupees. During a meeting with Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa yesterday, World Bank Country Director for Maldives, Nepal and Sri Lanka, Faris Hadadzavos, has commended the Sri Lankan government for how it has dealt with the coronavirus outbreak. Expressing deep gratitude for the relationship that Sri Lanka and the World Bank share, Hadadzavos congratulated the Prime Minister for not only on the election victory but on how Sri Lanka has managed the pandemic. The government of Sri Lanka also appreciated the World Bank for the various assistance programs during the pandemic, and the World Bank was the first donor agency to come forward with assistance when the pandemic first broke out early this year. When asked about Sri Lanka's priorities, Premier Rajapaksa responded by pointing to several key sectors the government would like to prioritize after the current outbreak situation is under control, such as the economic development, roads, drinking water, sanitation and agriculture. Moreover, the World Bank Country Director highlighted Sri Lanka's Ayurveda sector, noting that there is a great international demand for Ayurvedic products. Another area that was discussed was film tourism. With a very well-developed tourism sector, Hadadzavos said a possible next step for countries like Sri Lanka to increase tourism even further is to attract the entertainment industry from around the world to use Sri Lanka as a location for productions. It was noted that studies have shown that seeing a location in a movie or television can have a significant impact on the number of tourists visiting that location. Newly appointed Air Force Commander Air Marshal Sudarshana Patirana said that though there is no enemy at present, improving the attack and support capabilities of the Air Force is one of his key priorities. Air Force Commander Patirana gave this assurance speaking to media after assuming duties as the 18th Commander of the Sri Lanka Air Force yesterday. Air Vice Marshal Patirana was appointed by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa as the 18th Commander of the Sri Lanka Air Force, and he replaced the former Commander Air Marshal Sumangala Dias, who retired this Monday. Outgoing Air Force Commander Air Marshal Sumangala Dias bid farewell to the Air Force and handed over the responsibilities to the newly appointed commander at a parade held at the Air Force headquarters yesterday morning.
මාහට ඔබ සැම විසින් ලබා දුන් සුවිශේෂී සහාය නව ගුවන් හමුදාපතිතුමා හට ඒ අයුරින්ම ලබා දෙනු ඇතැයි මම තරයේ විශ්වාස කරමි.
Air Force Commander Air Marshal Sudarshana Patirana joined the Sri Lanka Air Force in 1985, and he has participated in almost all the major counter-terrorist operations conducted in Sri Lanka, and his bravery has been acknowledged through the award of Gallantry Awards on 6 occasions, according to the Sri Lanka Air Force. In a simple function held at the Air Force headquarters, Air Marshal Sudarshana Patirana assumed his duties.
ඔබ සියලු දෙනාටත් මාගේ හෘදයාංගම කෘතඥතාවය පළ කර සිටිමි. ස්තුතියි. ඔබ සියලු දෙනාට තෙරුවන් සරණයි.
I'm planning to enhance our maritime reconnaissance and search and rescue capabilities, since we have about 60 times bigger sea than the land area. And by doing so, we are trying to protect the sea and its resources for the future generations. My aim is to enhance the capability in unmanned aerial vehicles and also in the cyber war activities to meet the future challenges which is we are expecting to come through the non-directional enemies. And my fourth aim is to make sure that my Air Force is capable of meeting any challenge which been faced during any natural calamities to ensure the protection of the people.
Meanwhile, newly appointed Air Force Commander Air Marshal Sudarshana Patirana also visited President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and engaged in a brief discussion over his plans for the Sri Lanka Air Force this morning. We'll be back with stock updates after this short break. Welcome back after the break. The trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a positive note today. The all-share price index gained 62.64 points to close at 5,905.91 and the S&P SL 20 gained 23.44 points to close at 2,317.83. The turnover was 3.5 billion rupees and over 242 million shares were traded. Up next are forex rates. And that's all the news for today. See you tomorrow with State of Business at the usual time. Until then, take care. Good night.